Hello, and welcome to the Kosh, the People's Podcast. I'm your host, Timber Smith, and the Kosh is a podcast that spotlights the people who have had an association with the Kosh and the surrounding Fox Cities region. Kosh listeners, how are we doing out there? Hey, you know what? Happy Podcast Day. All right, it's a fab day, even though, we're in the new year, which makes me super excited. I don't do that resolution thing, so I didn't make myself any promises I wasn't going to keep. Let me tell you about my last time I did that. There was a couple of years ago, I was like, I'm totally working out. And New Year's Day, I totally went to the Y, took advantage of the free, they charge you to join, but unless you do it on New Year's Day, and then they don't charge you. And so I joined the Y. Was so excited. I was like, I'm going to sit in the sauna. I'm going to do some workouts. I'm going to go to some classes. And for 2 years, I had this membership and I didn't go one time. And I just quit the membership because I was like, well, that was my version of philanthropy. And I said, well, I feel like I've done enough in the 2 years of philanthropy. So, gosh, listen, we were like, nah, we're done with that. You know what? I should do better. But we're not going to do better anytime soon, and I'm going to be honest with myself. Maybe that's my New Year's resolution. I'm going to be honest with myself. All right, normal update. It is a beautiful Wisconsin day. It is not too cold. It is not windy. I actually think it's kind of gorgeous, and it's sunny, which is the most important thing that I care about, is the fact that we have some sun out here. Now, for what we have in store for this episode, Kosh listeners, I am crazy excited about this conversation. I actually didn't know if this was ever going to happen. This was something I had always hoped would happen one day. And the ask went much better than I ever thought. It went so easy. I was like, hey, think about doing this? And they were like, okay. And you can't beat that. You know what I mean? So we are lucky enough. And Kosh listeners, you know what I'm about to say. You know what I'm about to say. I don't know how we get so lucky to get these amazing, amazing guests. And this week is no different. So, without any further ado, this week's guest is John Matz. Hey, John.
Hi. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Good.
All right. Wasn't too hard to find the great studio, the great Kosh studio?
Nope. It was easy.
Well, you know what? I bet you know your way pretty well around here.
I
do. All right. So, John, we're gonna jump right in because I know we got you for a limited amount of time. So, my first question for you, John, is can you please share a little something about yourself and your association with the Kosh and the surrounding Fox Cities region?
Sure. I grew up in New London, Wisconsin, which isn't too far from here, maybe 45 minutes away, and attended UW-Stevens Point for a semester, then transferred to UWO.
Oh, bruh. Yes.
And then I needed a little bit of direction, so joined the military. I got that direction very quickly from a drill sergeant who taught me the ways of life, and I returned and finished with my bachelor's from UW-Oshkosh. I then went to work for Shawano County Sheriff's for a very brief time, about 5 months. Came to Winnebago County Sheriff and have been here the last 35 years.
What? Bruh. 35 years?
Almost. I'll be starting my 35th year shortly.
That's a minute.
That's a minute.
Okay. I didn't know you were a Titan.
I was.
Well, no, it's not a was, John. I am.
Right.
Don't do us like that.
Right. Right.
Okay, well, let me start with your veteran journey first. What was your MOS? What did you end up doing?
I was in field artillery. I was a 13 Fox. That's a forward observer. Best job in the entire military. You sit up on an observation post, call in grid coordinates for artillery, mortars, fast movers, so helicopters, and you get to watch stuff blow up based on what information you're giving the Fire Direction Center. Great job.
Oh, that's a pretty good MOS.
It is.
I never knew that. Well, then again, there's so many MOSs. Never would we know. But you're the first person I ever met that I knew that had that one.
Yes. Life expectancy on the battlefield isn't so long. However, was a very cool job.
Okay. All right. How long were you in? Are you still in?
No, I am not. So I joined 1983, and then I retired after 21 years. I was a first sergeant. I retired out of a field artillery battalion in Milwaukee. I was with the Plymouth unit, and then about 4 years later, 3-4 years later, I got back in, and I deployed with my son, who was going to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. So I got back in, and he got out shortly after we came back, and I stayed in longer. I think the first 21 years that I didn't quite appreciate everything about the military. I do know that without the experiences, the training, the leadership, good and bad, that I encountered, I wouldn't be here today as sheriff.
Well, that is true. The one thing they're going to do is they're going to teach you how to lead.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to teach you how to take an order.
Oh, yeah.
Facts.
Yep.
Yep.
And it teaches you, well, how to say this exactly, but I know what misery is like. I know being out in the cold where you swear you're going to die, or out in the rain where it's like raining from top to bottom, sideways, sleeping in weather that is not conducive to any kind of gear, let alone, the gear that we had. So I learned a lot. I tested my physical and mental limits and truly made a difference when I would encounter certain things in, different occupation as a law enforcement officer. I'd be like, this isn't so bad, because I remembered.
Yeah, you were a grunt.
Yes.
Dude, that's grunt work.
Yes.
Let me tell you what I wasn't. A grunt.
Yeah.
No, that grunt stuff. No, I mean, we all got to go out in the field at some point, but that's not for me. I leave me the cushy Army Medical Hospital. That's a nice spot to be.
Yeah.
Warmer.
I would agree.
So, gosh, John, that's a lot of service.
It is.
When you're talking 30 plus as a sheriff in the sheriff's department and another 20 something in the military, that's a lot of service.
Yeah, it was just a few months short of 30 years in the military.
You retired out at Sergeant Major?
Yeah, a command sergeant major. Right. So, not that I had felt like I had done everything that I needed to do, but physically it was becoming, even though my job was very different than what it was as a private or even a sergeant, physically it was becoming a little bit tougher to be out in the field for a couple of weeks and, doing all those things. Your body really isn't meant for that at the age of 50. And actually I was like 54, I think, when I retired. So I retired in 2017. It was kind of bittersweet. I got, staying in touch with a very different generation, because the new people coming in are 17 years old. Mm-hmm. They have very little life experience and a different outlook on life, but it also taught me about how you have to change your leadership skills or your leadership approach to different generations. I was just told what to do and I did it. Now it's a little bit different. There's some explanation. There's some positive reinforcement that it has to happen to motivate people. And that's good, but it's understanding all those things. And I think it was probably one of, later in my military career, one of the things that helped me most at working in law enforcement then at the same time.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I mean, definitely the military's gone through a culture shift from what it was in the past. So how did some of that did those kind of cultural changes also happen in law enforcement? Where, because you've been in 30 plus, right? And so I'm assuming what law enforcement was 30 plus years ago is not what law enforcement is today. And then the candidates, the individuals that are coming into law enforcement, I assume are not necessarily has that same frame of mind or that same, I want to call it cultural background.
Right. It's way different. Certainly, I think there's a few differences. Number one, we do have some people that this is what I want to do my entire life. This is what I'm going to do my entire life. which is what it was when I got in 30 plus years ago. People were, once they got in, they didn't get out of law enforcement. They enjoyed it. They knew that's what their calling was, so to speak. No, not everyone, but certainly a vast majority. Now we have people that just dabble in it, because the job market is such that they can dabble a little bit. So it's not quite the same as what it was when I first became a law enforcement officer. And we find that kids that are coming out today don't have the same life experiences that I did as a young man. I think COVID plays some role in that. I think helicopter parenting has a role in that. So it's a little more difficult, because when we have, for instance, deputies in the jail that are dealing with inmates that are really institutionalized. They've been there 25 times in jail. They know how to manipulate people. And yet our young deputies coming in don't have the experience and what that's like and what someone is trying to do, et cetera, et cetera. So it's trying to give them not only the training they need to do the job, but then the training they do to be 22 years old, but with the life experiences of a 40-year-old. So that has changed, but the generation is very smart. They are very tech savvy. So when we throw new technology at them, it doesn't faze them. I mean, where somebody my age, I'm not even going to try it.
John, I'm not going to lie. I'm not giving you the remote control to the VHS.
No.
Bruh.
Exactly. There are times on my TV where I get lost and I'm like, okay, I got to start over. I turn it off.
All right, that's fair. Look, I'm getting to that point. Like, it's starting to, I'm just at that point. I'm a big nerd, but it's just getting to that point that, like, it's constantly changing so fast. It can't keep up with all the new stuff.
Right.
But
Right.
I sure do try.
Yeah, and law enforcement has, and the military too, when we first, we had a very small radio, but as I left, we had encrypted radios and had to have keys and they had to be in sync. And I mean, it was crazy. Could talk to the other side of the world on a secure network when I left, but there was never that when I first started in the military. And the same thing in law enforcement. When I started with a radio and red and blue lights and a siren on a little dial, that was it. Now there are computers in the car, printers in the car, license plate readers. We don't have them in our cars, but certainly all of that technology exists, and the new generation, there's no issue. Matter of an hour, they got it.
Well, I mean, I see like there's a laptop literally sitting in their passenger seat, and they're able to punch stuff in. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this question: what does it mean to be sheriff? Right? I think a lot of people have assumptions of what does that mean, but I don't think many know. Like, what does it mean to be sheriff?
Well, so the sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the county. That doesn't mean that the police chiefs answer to the sheriff, but what it does mean is that sometimes they will follow suit with what the sheriff is doing. So when we had COVID occurring and our stance on masks and enforcing mask mandates, et cetera, we gave an answer to that, and the chiefs followed that. But that's only a real small portion of it. Being sheriff, it's an elected position, so I don't have a boss. My boss is everyone that's out there voting.
The people.
The people, yeah, of Winnebago County.
Yes.
Which is very different than what a police chief is, and it gives a lot of autonomy to the sheriff, there's a lot of power that exists there in statute and in the state constitution. So you have to be extremely careful about how you use that and whether or not the decisions you make are misusing that power. So my perspective is that I always look at what's best for the 173,000 people that live here. It's not what's best for a person or a group necessarily. I have to always consider the decision I make for that person. How does that impact the 173,000? And that is one of the things that is different about that sheriff's position. We run the jail, which is a 355-bed jail. We run the communication center, the dispatch center. So we dispatch for all of the first responders in the county, all the full-time, part-time fire departments, the 7 police agencies. It is it's like a telethon in there at times. It makes me nervous. They have 8 screens that they're looking at the same time, and they could be landing a helicopter and handling another incident all at the same time. And it is a very difficult job, but they do it amazingly well. And so those two things are the difference, like between a sheriff's office and a police department. And again, being the sheriff, you are a true representative of all of the people that have elected you, the citizens of your county. So you're setting the standard, you're holding people to standards, you have expectations. And then when I make decisions or things happen, I consider the 173,000 and what their perspective would be on that, and what the majority's perspective would be. So it's not an easy job, but it's very, very rewarding.
What don't we understand? What's the misconception we have?
I don't think a lot of people know who the sheriff is. They don't know that it's an elected position. Some do, certainly. They don't maybe quite appreciate the vast amount of authority and responsibility that exists for the sheriff. And I'm not going to do this job forever. And certainly there are people that can do it better than I can, but we want to make sure that when we elect the next sheriff, we consider all those things and be an educated voter. You know, the phone calls that still occur in the middle of the night, they still happen depending upon what has occurred in the county. So it's a 24/7 job. I think about it a lot.
I don't think you got a choice.
Right. As a matter of fact, when I drive through the county, they have 4 dogs. I take them for a ride and I smoke a cigar. And as I drive through the county, I think about the events that have occurred at different locations. Most of them are tragic. So I'll think about, okay, this tragic event occurred. What can we do to prevent it? Whether it was a drunk driver, whether it was a domestic, whether it was, something else. And those things stick in my mind, and they're actually what kind of motivates and drives me is what can we get out of the tragedies that we have, and how can we change things?
How big is the county? Because when we say Winnebago County, I don't think a lot of people know what encompasses Winnebago County.
Sure. Well, our western limit is west of Omro, about 10 miles. And we go all the way up to Orhula, Fremont area. So we actually have to take Highway 10, go over the bridge into Wapaka County, and then come back into Winnebago County. So it's we're isolated or we have to leave our jurisdiction to get to our jurisdiction. So we go up that far, and then Highway 41, so south of 26, about 5 miles, and then we go all the way up to Highway Double B, which is Prospect Ave. So we do have a part of Appleton. About 17,000 residents in the city of Appleton are Winnebago County residents. Neenah, Menasha, Winneconne, Omro, Oshkosh obviously is all Winnebago County. And then we have we're bordered by the lake on the east side. So not only do we have a lot of highways, not only do we have a fairly large area, it's fairly urban. We do have some rural parts to it, but fairly urban area. And the waterways, we are responsible for search and recovery of individuals as well as rescue. And we conduct boat patrol, et cetera, snow patrol on those lakes as well.
All right. So you made a statement a few minutes ago that was kind of like, well, I'm not going to do this forever, right? What's next?
Well, what's next is I have announced and amidst the candidacy for county executive. And if I am successful, the governor will appoint the next sheriff, and typically he follows the recommendation of the outgoing sheriff. And there are great people that can hold that position and do it better than I can. But And if I'm not successful, I continue to be the sheriff until the end of this term. And although I'm not making a retirement announcement for this term, my plan would be to retire. If I am successful and do become county executive, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of things that I see that need to be changed, a lot of things that other people see that need to be changed, and that's going to take some time. But I am ready, willing, and able to do all those things.
Why? Okay, so you've got this super long military and law enforcement career, right? By standard. Most people already be like, hey, I'm ready to tap out. It's time for me to sit on the bank and do fishing and all this other stuff. And now you're going to jump into the local political arena in a sense, which it's all public service. So I see it under the same umbrella in a sense. But why?
Because of the things that I see, the dysfunction and the mistrust that exists now, I am not ready to stop my public service. And certainly I can do that in a different way. I can volunteer. And I think after I retire, I will do some volunteering and use my experience and my passion for serving people in a different way. But right now, the people of Winnebago County deserve someone that is open, transparent, and responsive. And that's not happening. And instead of complaining about it, I have the ability to do something about it. Now, whether or not I'm successful, that's up to the voters. I ask that the voters educate themselves, look at the websites of the three candidates, and look at the qualifications. When we make promotions at the sheriff's office, we literally will cover up the name and we'll look at the qualifications of the person. And then what has that person done? What additional responsibilities have they already taken? And how are they successful at that? And then, we uncover the names, we look at the qualifications, and it makes it much easier when you can look at somebody who's already given to the agency their time, their talents, they're trying to get better, they're trying to make change. That's the kind of person that we want in office, and I have done that the past 14 years as sheriff and a longer period as a deputy and in the service as well.
Okay, so here's your opportunity. You're talking to Winnebago County. What would you like to come into office and do? Like, what are you thinking? What are some of the first things you would like to do? Because I think you've got a unique perspective. You're probably a way more informed than your average resident, so to say. Where would you start? What are some of the first things to do? And I do think it's a good plea to tell people to go out here and look and to get informed. But that's a big ask, right? That's a big body of water. What should they be looking for?
Well, I think the things that need to be changed immediately, and I will address immediately, are the open, transparent, responsive government. As sheriff, I answer my own phone. I answer my own emails. So I know what's happening in my world. I also am an engaged leader. I know what's happening at our agency with every one of our divisions. If you asked me a question about any one of our divisions, I know that I can give you, at the very least, a very accurate general answer. And within a matter of minutes, I can give you the detailed answer for whoever is in charge of that program or in charge of that particular area. But I am confident that I can answer those questions. So I think we need engaged leadership. We need, I know that we do a lot of things. The county is a resource-rich form of government. They're responsible for a lot. There are a lot of federal, state, and legislatively mandated programs that we have to do. And as part of that open, transparent, responsive government, I would immediately assess every one of those programs, which is going to take a little bit of time. And I know that we've sort of started it with program and priority-based budgeting, but we're into the third year of that. That should have happened in year one. So we are going to do that immediately. And if a program is not meeting its desired effect, we're going to change it so that it does, or we're going to get rid of it. And if it's mandated, we're going to replace it with something that does work. we're going to leverage the resources of our nonprofits. I was at a meeting about a month ago, maybe a little bit longer, at Oshkosh Corp, where many of the nonprofits were in a room, sponsored and held at Oshkosh Corp, and I was amazed at the amount of nonprofits we have in Winnebago County, and there were a few that were just the valley as a whole, but they also served Winnebago County. And as I went from table to table and I looked at people's name tags and I engaged in conversation, we're not utilizing them. Why are we not taking the resources that they have, that are many of them funded through grants, whether state or federal grants, or private funding? We're duplicating services that we don't need to duplicate. And if we can share those services, we may be able to reduce the tax levy for the citizens of Winnebago County because we're leveraging all of those other resources within the county. So those are the immediate things that need to happen, and I will make that happen. I already have a relationship with the Winnebago County Board, with the committees. The role of the county exec is really kind of a maestro with not a whole lot of authority. The board, the collective county board, decides fiscally what happens.
I mean, that's most organizations, right?
Right.
Seriously.
Yeah. So they also operationally decide certain things. Now, there are obviously directions that the county exec can steer the county towards, and long-term solutions for our AODA issues, for mental health issues, for our homeless issues. Those have to be top priorities for us. And the individuals who have AODA issues, have mental health issues, we do have resources, and we want to make sure that not only are they aware of them, but we're being assertive in that contact. Because oftentimes a homeless person has those issues. There's a reason for their homelessness. It's not that they're lazy. It's not that they're...
Oh, no, it's way more complex. And people, and how many of our homeless actually do have jobs?
Yes.
A lot.
Right. Right. And they just don't make enough money to pay the high rents that exist. I understand all of that. But if those other issues exist, we can help you with the housing, but you need to help us with your underlying issues so you do become that self-supporting individual. And that's really important. And once people get there, and we have a program in the jail called the STAR program, which really does all of those things. And then once they're released from jail, they have a sobriety coach. We've seen unbelievable results. The average recidivism rate is 33% for that group of individuals. We have it down less than 7%.
Wow.
It's amazing. We are being looked at by the entire state as well as outside. The state of Oregon contacted us and said, hey, what is this program and how come it's working so well? So it's about thinking outside the box of how we can utilize our resources the best way with the best results. And we're starting another program in conjunction with the DA's office, the habitual offender sobriety transformation. And really those are the individuals that are high frequency, low risk offenders, but they change quality of life for people living in a certain area. So we want to get them help, and oftentimes they don't get they get a very minimal amount of jail time. They get a fine that they're not going to pay, et cetera, et cetera. So it is about creating that relationship with them to change how they think and make a difference when it comes to AODA and mental health issues, which is a lot of what and oftentimes they go together.
Well, what I will say is what I like what you're saying right there is this. A lot of people don't know what a resource-rich region we live in, but, you know, I do have another podcast called Appleton Engaged for the city of Appleton, and we almost exclusively interview nonprofits, and we have over 80 episodes, all nonprofits. So just to think about the amount of resources that we actually have, and it's a big part of helping people feel like they belong, is giving them access or the knowledge that these things exist, both from the aspect of they may need the services or they need something to do and they want to give back to the community.
Absolutely.
And so I do like this concept of go out here and let's make these partnerships with these nonprofits, because we do have amazing people, amazing resources out here doing really awesome things. I've got 80 plus episodes saying as such. And if anybody want to check that out, that is Appleton Engage Podcast. Now, my next question is, what's going to give you fresh eyes and fresh ideas? Because, you've been in the game for a long time. And that would be my thing, is like, if I get an opportunity for a new county exec, right? And are they looking at things with a fresh set of eyes? Who do they have on their team that's representative of these fresh set of eyes? Is there representation on their team that represents who we are today and who we continuously are becoming? Because I've lived here over 30 some years in the Kosh, and we don't look like we did 30 some years ago. But our government services do. They haven't changed. How are you going to help that?
Community engagement. So going out to the community, and what's your idea? What's Timber's idea about how to deal with AODA, mental health issues, homelessness? I mean, you see it. You've talked to people that have lived it, as have I.
Yes. I leave that stuff to the experts.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're lucky enough. We've got a couple of good things going on, right? We've got all these experts in many communities nearby us, all, this, and I do include Oshkosh in the Fox Cities conglomerate, more or less, right? We've got a bunch of mental health specialists. We've got universities with professional doctors who do research and all of that. I mean, you don't have to know all the things. You just have to know the people that know the things, and then partner and make and come up with answers for that. But what I'm looking at more or less is, because I don't question the ability to solve those kinds of issues, because I don't know if anybody's going to have more experience than you with a background in addressing all of that. But what about the other stuff, like the everyday living constituent, because county does parks.
Yep.
Care about those things. The ability to negotiate new employers to come into the region. Those things. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so like that, because that's that other part.
Right.
Like I know we've got issues that need addressing. No ifs, ands, or buts about that, right? And we've got people that are working on it. But I feel like as a voter, I want to know some of this other stuff too. Because as with 30 plus years of law enforcement, I'm not doubting the capability of you to be able to fix those things. I want to know about the other things that you might not have normally gotten a chance to put your hands on.
Sure. And a good example is that I think we missed the boat a little bit with our ARPA funds when we received all the money from the federal government. Yeah. So tax levy and how we receive new money from the county, or how the county receives new money, is called net new construction. So if there's new construction that occurs, last year I believe it was 1.5% net new construction. Yet Outagamie County, I think, was 2.7, so substantially more. And we're talking about a lot of money when you get into just 1.2% more.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
Right. And so how do we create the environment for net new construction and to bring businesses in, which also bring high-paying jobs, et cetera, and more tax base? Well, I think we have to have a plan on how we're going to help the municipalities, the villages, and the townships with infrastructure so that they can expand. So instead of having the contractor pay for the new road that goes to a new subdivision, which increases the cost of that new construction, maybe it's funded and that reduces the cost of that new construction, which creates the environment of of being able to put up new subdivisions. And the same thing applies with commerce and bringing in new businesses. We have a very stable, hardworking workforce here. Now, it's less than what it was 20 years ago, and that's just because of the age of the people that had babies and didn't have babies. So the workforce is down millions of people from what it really needs to be. But people that do work here are hardworking, and I know that businesses understand that. So it's about looking at ways that we can take property and prepare it and be able to advertise it for these businesses. One of the examples is UW Fox is closing, and I believe it's a 47-acre campus. And there's all kinds of discussion about what's going to happen with that property. And I'm not against selling it to another government entity to save some money, but I also think that some consideration should be given to that property, or at least the information should be given. It's 47 acres of prime real estate that has a direct connection to 441 and 41. So is that a possibility for property or a business like Amazon or Foxconn needs something up here on the north end? It's or the northern or the east central part of the state. I think, and again, I'm not against selling it to, there's rumors of selling it to a school district. Not against that, but it never hits the tax roll if it's still a government building. So I think we have to be very careful that we're giving full information to the board about what this property is worth and what the best use would be. And if it's ultimately decided that that's given to another government entity, okay, but what else can we develop and help advertise for businesses to come to us?
I really like the idea. I mean, that's a beautiful campus. And I had heard rumblings of my personal favorite out of all the things that I heard was the idea of it becoming a nonprofit hub where you know, a lot of our nonprofits don't necessarily have a home base or not a great home base, and to centralize it. So because a lot of the people that need the resources need multiple resources, right? And if they can have a one-stop shop for those resources, that would be a pretty awesome thing.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems about nonprofits is they're spread out, and I need to have assistance with paying rent. I need to have assistance with paying utilities, or I need to, have AODA or mental health services. You're right. How many places are you having to go? And you may not have a car that works. Is there a bus that takes you there?
Most of us ain't got a car that works.
Bruh.
Amen. So I think, having them under one roof would be very beneficial. And it's, like you said, a one-stop shop, and I can take care of all these things. So there are a lot of different uses, but I do think as far as that economic development, we have to work with the chambers. We have to be very aggressive on selling our area and what this area all brings. It's beautiful. I mean, we have the largest lake in Wisconsin. We have all kinds of waterways. We have all kinds of opportunities. We host some of the largest events in the world, and we need to sell it, and I know the chambers do that. But maybe there's a way that the county can get involved in assisting with that and developing or helping municipalities, villages, and townships develop those areas for places to move to.
Okay. John, we haven't even jumped into the podcast. We're still in the intro.
Oh, boy.
That's okay. We're going to keep it moving. We're keeping you on time.
Yeah.
My next question is this. If you weren't doing today what you're doing, in your dream world, what would you like to be doing?
Well, when I was a kid and growing up, I always thought it would be cool to be a mediator between countries and mediate treaties or mediate land disputes, so I would assume that would be an attorney, etc. I don't know if I could have had the discipline to make it through all that schooling, but what would I be doing? And I actually was a pipe fitting apprentice before I became a law enforcement officer, so I would probably be in the trades, something very hands-on. I love to see progress. When I mow my lawn, I get excited when I look at the rows being straight and it looking really good.
You're that person. You like, my wife is like that. It's like she's the person that you start the day in one place and wants to see instant results by the end of that same workday.
Right.
And I have an appreciation for that because I am not that.
Yeah.
I am the long-term strategist. Okay. Ready to jump into our first segment?
Sure.
Our first segment is called What in the World is Going On With? That's where you start with the phrase, what in the world? And you tell us what's on your mind.
Well, from a global perspective, I am concerned about the Middle East and the turmoil that exists there, politically, et cetera. You could get into all different arguments or discussions over that, but my youngest son is still in the military and is deploying to the Middle East in April, May timeframe. So I have a very vested interest with what's going on and how will it be resolved, and maybe it can be resolved before they have to go over there. Where he goes, I don't know exactly, but having been over there, and he's been there one time before as well. So I think we are in a very tumultuous situation and kind of always has been, but it's exacerbated right now with the Middle East and what has occurred with Israel and the Palestinians and et cetera, and now Iran. And there's just so many things that could happen and highly concerning.
Bruh.
Facts. Okay. My what in the world is going on with is what in the world's going on with these fires in Cali. That is sad. As I watch the reporting on that, and I just can't even imagine having these fires and then having these crazy winds that are just making these fires spread super fast. And just, as you're looking at the reports of some of this, to wipe out basically an entire city in hours, that's insane.
It is. And it's such a helpless feeling, I'm sure, as a resident, as a first responder, even as a politician in charge of all those things, you're just helpless.
Mm-hmm. I don't like the finger pointing that's happening right now because I hate finger pointing in the crisis.
Right.
There's plenty of time to be critical and evaluate, that stuff after the fact. But while people are still suffering, I cannot stand when people are being hypercritical. Serve the people.
Yeah, I agree. It's such a long-lasting event, too. It's not like a tornado that comes through and has this complete devastation, and you can immediately go into that mode of let's get things fixed and let's help people. Right now, you can't even help people because you're so focused on the fire and what it's doing in that continued devastation. And what a helpless feeling. It's, I feel very, very badly for everybody that's been impacted by that. And you're right. After action reviews will determine if there's anybody at fault or if it's Mother Nature or whatever it is.
Well, it's definitely Mother Nature. Right,
yeah.
But if there was whatever people are preparing for, if anything, it seems like, I don't know if it's one of those things where government officials should take as much blame as I would say the people who build these residents in places where it's kind of like, you're on the line. Right. It's in the line of fire hazards and the possibilities of.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree. Natural disasters we've had floods here, and one of my homes had 3 feet of water in it when I was just started for the sheriff's office, and
oof.
That's a helpless feeling too, and all the devastation and damage that's done, and it takes years to recover when. You got to pay for a new furnace, hot water heater, and, demold your entire basement. So,
yeah, water is as bad as fire. Actually, water can be worse. That's bad stuff.
Yeah.
Take it from a former insurance agent.
Bruh.
All right. Next segment. The next segment is called 21 questions. This is our opportunity to ask you some questions. There are not 21 questions, John, but there are enough questions that these are quality questions that might solicit 21 awesome answers. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, first question. What are you grateful for?
My family, the pride that I have in the kids and what they've accomplished. And I think most importantly that they're happy. They are productive, they're happy. They and three of them serve in public service, either through the military or through working for a law enforcement agency. So I am just really thankful for them more than anything.
What motivates you?
Well, much like mowing the lawn, it's accomplishing things. When I see something that needs to be fixed, at all costs, we are going to fix it. And sometimes that's not the greatest way to look at things. And when I say all costs, I mean labor, not money, but just effort. And at the sheriff's office, sometimes that causes some discontent because of the amount of work we're putting into a certain issues that might not even be our issue to deal with, but it's somebody needs help, something needs to be changed. We're going to make a change.
What grounds you?
I grew up my parents worked really hard. My dad sold our farm when I was 5 years old, could not handle the stress of knowing whether or not he could get the crops in and pay the bills. My mom was a nurse's aide, and then my dad had various jobs as I was growing up. So we didn't have a lot of money, but I always had something to eat. I didn't know the difference. I do looking back now. I have just a great appreciation for how hard they worked. And one of my biggest failures is not telling them how much I appreciated them then and how much I learned from them. And they taught me humility. And it's don't relish in what you've done, because the next 5 minutes could bring something that you're not going to be proud of or will really humble you.
What does success look like to you?
Helping somebody else. We had a young girl, about 30 years old, who had snorted heroin. We brought her back. This is in 2017. We brought her back with Narcan, and she was at death. She had agonal breathing. We weren't sure if she was going to come back. We decided that we were going to bring her in 2 days later after that, and she could watch the body cam video of her be dead, because in all intents and purposes, she was gone. She brought her mom, and it made an impact, and she wanted to get sober, and it worked. Although I still stay in contact with her. She is now 40, has a job, got married, has a great relationship with her 2 kids that she didn't have before. But that process of sobriety for her was probably very similar to a lot of people's, where she got arrested for drug use, even after seeing that video and after our encouragement and after contact. But that's the reality of what that recovery looks like. And now she sends me a happy Father's Day. Her father thanks me. And we have contact on a regular basis, typically through text. She was just in my office with her daughter. She has now been clean over 6 years, and we are working on her governor's pardon so that she can become a peer counselor and go to school. She has a felony on her record, so that limits her. But if there's a person that deserves a second chance without that over her head, it is Christina.
What irritates you?
Well, when this may come off wrong, but when people take too long to explain things to me, I want people to give me enough information, but I don't need the life story. So I took a personality test a while ago, and the best way to deal with me was, and again, this is what the test said: be brief, be bright, and be gone. So it's I want the story. I want it all, but I don't want a long drawn out thing. Let's just start fixing, right? And
You're a doer.
yeah. Yep. And I don't need the history on everything. Sometimes it's important, but oftentimes it's not. And sometimes you have to just turn around, go collect yourself, and then get that brief part when you come back.
What scares you?
My wife, when she's mad at me.
Ooh, facts.
Yep. What scares me? Well, I think not having enough to do scares me. You know, when my father retired, he retired at about 65, 66, and I watched him get old fast. And I would try to get him moving, but he didn't. I mean, he lived to be 84 years old, which is a good run, obviously, but I want to make sure that I'm always actively engaged in something, and not just stuff around the house that's physical, but also engaged in the community with helping solve issues. So that scares me, not having that kind of challenge.
What recharges your soul?
People like Christina that are a success. People that I see that beat the odds. And I don't have AODA issues. When I was a young man, certainly I probably drank too much alcohol, but I don't think it was ever an issue where I know it was an issue where I couldn't stop. So when people do that to me is amazing, because I see how difficult that is. I haven't lived it, but I see how difficult it is.
How do you define love?
Somebody that is always there for you, that supports you through the good, the bad, the uncertain, and that you can always lean on, and vice versa, that we support each other, and that is loyal. Loyalty is one of the most important, if not the most important trait in a relationship, is being loyal to each other.
What is the most memorable life lesson that you've learned from a parent, a guardian, or a mentor?
From both of my parents, again, they worked very hard. And if, back then it was where I grew up, where it was rural New London. But I remember we'd go to a grocery store. It was a very small one. And it was kind of like Little House on the Prairie. If my mom didn't have enough money, they would put it on an account. So I know that she didn't like doing it, but I also knew that she was really willing to humble herself to feed her family. And I think that reminds me of where I came from.
So you are the keynote for a big event, right? You're going to go out here, talk to the people, share some motivating things. John, what is your walkout song?
By the best band ever put together, AC/DC, Thunderstruck.
Okay.
That's the music I grew up on, and I haven't switched to country. I haven't switched to pop. It's still that genre.
Okay, so that's the walkout song, huh?
That's it.
All right, have you done that yet?
No, but that's a good idea.
Put it on the bucket list. All right, I love it. Okay, John, you have survived 21 questions. Next segment. Next segment is called word association. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say some words. You're going to tell me what comes to your mind. What's going on? All right. We have a tradition here on the Kosh, and that is this. We always start with the same word, and that is the word of family. That is the word of unity. That is the word of love. That word is food.
Steak.
Oh, steak.
Love it. Ribeye steak.
Are you are you a grilling person yourself, or do you just like to go sit down?
I prefer to do it myself. Blacken it with a cast iron skillet, then put it on the grill for 3.5 minutes each side. It is perfect. Or I've actually smoked ribeye, and that's amazing too.
Okay, did you say 3.5 minutes each side?
Yeah.
That sounds like that thing might still be mooing, John.
Well, Depending upon the thickness of the steak.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, steak. Now, okay, let me ask you the crucial steak question. Sauce, no sauce?
No sauce.
No sauce.
Nope.
Not about that.
Not about that. It's just about the taste of that ribeye.
Okay. Cocktail or beer?
Beer.
All right. Are we, what's our favorite?
Corona.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So that's what, when we go to a space, sit down, beer.
Yep.
Okay. Shop local.
Like, what place do I shop at that's local?
Well, what comes to mind? It
What
could be a
comes to
place. Usually people name a place, but I mean, this is your word association.
Probably Lowe's. We do a lot of home improvement. As a matter of fact, I have to stop at Lowe's this afternoon and pick up a ladder that my old one is no longer safe, and so I have to get a new ladder. I've got some things that my wife Sandy need to be taken care of, and I better get on that.
Okay. Concert.
AC/DC. I've never seen the band, the original band. I've seen a number of cover bands. I do understand that they're touring again and are going to be in Chicago. Well, I'm going. One way or another, I'm getting a ticket.
You're going to be there.
I won't be there.
Okay. What's the best concert you've ever been to?
Well, I saw the World Series of Rock in, I think, 1982, which was Foreigner, Triumph, A Journey, a couple other ones that I don't remember, but probably the best concert that was at the old Milwaukee County Stadium.
You're bringing it back.
I'm bringing it back.
Facts. Streaming.
So Sandy and I like to watch Netflix series. We've seen actually during COVID, we did this project with 2x4s, and we made American flags out of them, and we made over 300 of them. And this, let me tell you, this wasn't easy because they all had to be sanded, they all had to be painted, then they had to be stained and glued, and it was quite the project. But we watched an entire Netflix series while we were out in the shed sanding and painting. I got a TV out there, and yeah.
Okay, what's the series?
Lucifer.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that one. Is it good?
It's good. It's good, and it's enough to do 300 American flags. So.
Bruh.
Yeah, that's pretty serious.
It is.
Oh, all right. Public service.
Well, you know what I do now as sheriff, and hopefully what I'm given the opportunity to do as county exec. And I think the county exec's role is expanded in the sense of touching human services, public health, Parkview, all of the other entities. So that's my public service, what I want to do.
Last word. Diversity.
Extremely important. And it takes me back to when I was in basic training, and I was not a worldly person. So I had traveled to one other state on a bus with my dad. We went to Iowa for a farming thing. So I hadn't been anywhere. And now I'm in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, with the platoon I was with was 53 guys, and they were from all over. We even had one from Germany. And it was not just about the color of skin or any of that, but it was about where they grew up and how they thought differently and what their experiences were. The Deep South, the East Coast, the West Coast, and then you had the Midwestern guys who kind of were, thought all the same, and we had kids that were from inner city Detroit to more posh LA area. So that's diversity, and that brings to an organization a lot of different ideas, because that experience drives, well, you didn't live this, I did. So they have really good ideas. And I think that's important, that we try to reach out and have that experience in our organization.
The military does it better than anybody because they just put a group of anybody together.
And you figure it out.
You have no choice.
Nope.
But they become your most trusted people.
Yes.
And you do figure it out.
Yeah.
Love it. We have completed word association. Okay. Next segment's called the Kosh Hidden Gems. And in the Kosh Hidden Gems, what we're looking for is a hidden gem something you think is a hidden gem somewhere in the region. It could be anything. Maybe it's something everybody knows about and they don't know certain details about, or maybe it's something you don't think that many people know about. What's your hidden gem?
I think the thing that a lot of people know about, but if you take your time when you visit, you will learn so much about history, and that's our EAA museum. As you walk around and you look at all of those planes that are in that building, and you read about that, not only that plane, but the individuals that flew it, or if it's a replica, the things that Charles Lindbergh did, etc. You get an appreciation for how brave they were, how much they just said, I'm going to do this. I don't know if I'm going to live, but I'm going to do this. And then the obviously the planes that represent World War I, II, and Korea, Vietnam, and how much sacrifice was given when they flew those planes or when they worked on those planes, all of those different things. And I think when you don't look at it from, wow, that plane is cool, but you look at it from the historical aspect and then the human aspect of what actually that person gave up to do that.
That's a good point. I just went to EAA for my, as long as I've lived here, I just went for the first time a couple of years ago. And that's something else.
It is.
That's a lot of folks. Yep. I went for my second time this past year. The first time I went, I felt a little out of place. The second time I didn't, because I knew what the uniform was, which if you don't know what that is, that's a pair of New Balances, some cargo shorts, and a safari hat with some random T-shirt. That's whatever. I had my uniform on, and I think I was right there.
Oh, yeah. That is mandatory.
Isn't that literally, is that not the EA uniform?
That is it. That's what everybody wears. Everybody that's been there more than once, they all have that big sun hat on. And I've worked that event for many, many years. And obviously we still work it. And I go out to check on our guys. But just an amazing group of individuals that come here, and they're all here for the same reason, because they're enthusiasts. And then all the people that make it all happen. That's a big undertaking to bring in 600,000-700,000 people.
Oh, facts.
Yeah.
So. Now, you surprised me, because you know what I thought your hidden gem was going to be? I thought it was going to be the herd, because you know what? You don't miss no games.
I don't. Well, we do have one tomorrow at 12:30.
Yes, there is.
That is also very much. I was a basketball fan prior to working with the Wisconsin Herd, but never truly understood the game. I was a wrestler, so I would give the basketball players a hard time. Right?
Yeah, well, yeah, the wrestlers are a different breed. That's a different mindset of an athlete.
Yes. So I give them a hard time, but then when I started to not only get to know the players and where they came from, and so that's really cool too to get that kind of experience where some kids went to. One of them came from a reservation and was like below poverty, way below poverty, and now, is a Milwaukee Buck. So that's really cool, as well as watching the game itself. I never understood how physical the sport was, but holy man, they beat up on each other, and I can see how they get injured and those things happen. So. And then the fans, it's a lot of the same fan base that's there, and you create relationships with the people that attend, and it's a very well-run organization, and I'm super lucky to be part of it.
Well, I'm a Herd loyalist.
Oh, yeah.
I don't miss many games, and I've been there since the beginning, so I'm pretty serious about it. And, yeah, no doubt, until you're that close to them, you don't realize how big they are. They are huge.
They are. You stand when Giannis would visit a few games watching his brother play. I look like a hand puppet next to him.
He's a big man.
He's a big man, and having worked a few of the Bucks games too, there were guys that were not only 7 feet tall, but they were 315 or 300 pounds, and because they were just so wide and then just so athletic, it kind of scared me a little bit. Like if they were to get into a tussle, I'm not sure what I'm going to do to help, but I'll try.
Hey, well, you have to refer back to that old wrestling training.
There you go.
You wrestlers are tough. Okay. Next segment. The next segment is called Story Time, and this is the opportunity for our guest to tell the Kosh listeners a story, and it can be about absolutely anything. So, John, what's your story?
Well, I think one of the, I'm going to go back to my military experience, and in 2009, 2010, my son and I deployed to Iraq. We were in Bayap, which is Baghdad International Airport. And around that airport were a series of bases. And we were on Camp Cropper. Camp Cropper was a TIF, a theater internment facility. So we kept about 3,000 individuals that were detainees, like a prisoner, but a detainee. Many of them were known terrorists or suspected terrorists, etc. So there wasn't a lot of love between the people that we were guarding and the soldiers. Oftentimes, the ones that were soldiers or were educated, because some of them one of them was actually educated at Dartmouth University. And they understood that we were soldiers and we were following orders, so things were okay. You never wanted to put yourself in a situation where you put yourself in danger, so you were constantly aware of what was going on. But one particular evening, we got hit with rocket fire, and the rocket landed in my son's area. He was working, I was working, and I was the operational sergeant for internment facility, so I have a responsibility to the entire area, but I'm also a father. And ultimately, within a matter of 10 minutes, we were able to determine that there were no casualties. But I think that gave me an appreciation for being a soldier, being a father, and being an American. So that's one thing that really sticks out in my mind, and I can feel the emotion that I felt that night. And I don't think that'll ever go away.
Well, it is time. Every single time. I never tire of it. Love it. Kosh listeners, when you hear that sound, it is time for the topic of the week. And the topic of the week is chosen by our guest 99.9% of the time. And guess what? This week isn't going to be any different. So, John, what's going to be our topic of the week?
I would like it to be the election for county executive.
Well, that's what it's going to be. Let's make it happen. Let's go.
Okay. Well, I'd already talked about the reason that I'm running is to return to open, transparent, responsive government, to make sure that everybody's voice is heard, that we're not jeopardizing the 173,000 people that live here because of a decision that we make. We're not changing the quality of life. We're actually improving the quality of life. And not just for the 173,000, but also for the individuals that are impacted. And what are the long-term solutions to our issues? I'll use homelessness as an example. We can build another shelter, and we can put shelter over the heads of our homeless population and save them from frostbite tonight, but they may die of an overdose tomorrow, or they may commit suicide tomorrow. We need to make sure that we're looking at that long-term solution to the fix. And although I know people want to do that. I know that there is a drive to do that. I don't think there's a plan to do that. So we need to develop that plan, and we need to become assertive, and we need to create trust with the individuals that have mental health AODA issues, because we are a target, or we are a rich in resources county, and we want to make sure that we're utilizing all of those resources, not just what the county has, but also what the nonprofits have. And sometimes that might mean getting out of Winnebago County too. There may be something that AODA offers or Fond du Lac offers. We have to think more regionally when it comes to the issues, the social issues that exist. Is it, drugs and alcohol and homelessness doesn't stop at a border. It continues to go. So
people move around.
They do. Yeah. And I believe the city of Appleton has or they used to have a way for individuals to sign up, to register, and to say, this is who I am. And then they're kind of followed throughout the state. So we know that we've done a AODA assessment on this person in Kenosha County. They come to Winnebago County. We have all those answers already. Let's start at step 3, not step 1 again. I think that's really important, that we start to look at issues more globally and think outside the box for ways to fix this problem.
Yes, we still have that individual, and we actually even added another individual that person is specific to homelessness, and then we have someone else that now works a little more broadly with other challenges within the community and tries to connect people to the resources.
Mm-hmm. And people got to know where to go. When I talked about Christina, the person, the young lady that we brought back with Narcan and created a relationship with. She was in our jail, and I went to see her. This was after she was brought back, after she had seen the video, about maybe 4 months after she was arrested in our jail. I went to go see her, and she didn't want to see me. She was not happy. I think she was disappointed in herself, etc. But then a couple days later, she put out a request to see me. I saw her. She said, I want to change. How do I get into a rehab center? And Nova is right down the road from us, but I didn't know how to get in. I just thought you showed up at the door, and that's not how that works.
Well, that never works like that.
Right. So the process goes through our human services, and that all, I was able to facilitate it for her while she was in jail, but not everybody has the point of contact with the sheriff, right?
Right.
So we were missing something there. We were missing that link to what happens to me when I get out of jail. And that's what our STAR program does. It makes that connection while you're in jail, and then you get a Vivitrol shot, which blocks the impacts of alcohol and opioids. So we know that when you're walking out that door for 30 days, you can drink as much as you want, or you could use heroin, but it's not going to have an impact on you. So what's the sense? And oftentimes they're picked up by their sobriety coach from Solutions Recovery and given a ride to Sober Living or to Nova or to some other place that's safe. That's why the recidivism rates are changing so much and lowering so much, is that we not only give them the tools to address the AODA issues, but we get them out of the environment that they were in when they came to jail. And that's really important. And that could be just friends, it could be acquaintances, but it also could be family. Sometimes families don't set the greatest example for us, and we got to get out of that in order to see that. So that's why it's so successful.
How are you going to go out? Because in law enforcement, that's one kind of relationship, but as a basically local government representative, truly, how are you going to get out here and get to meet these constituents? And let me just add this on there as a caveat. Like, okay, so your long-time law enforcement, known entity, but everybody's relationship with law enforcement is not a positive one, right? There's a lot of feelings with some constituencies. How are you going to overcome that as you campaign and reach out and make these relationships?
Be open and honest. If you've had a bad experience with law enforcement, and it could have been the sheriff's office, tell me about your experience. When you look at the number of contacts and the number of complaints that the sheriff's office handles in a year, and you look at the use of force incidents that occur with those complaints, it is negligible. Very, very few use of force incidents, and it's because of the good people that we hire and how we train them. So that's a piece of it, and certainly it doesn't have to be a use of force. It could be just a conversation you have that went bad and went poorly. We have body cameras. I'm willing to go through that body camera with you.
Wait, I'm not even talking about people who have interaction. Some people just have feelings.
Yeah.
You know, from long-standing whatever, wherever they may have come from, things that might have happened in their family. They personally may have never had an interaction. But it doesn't change the fact that some people just have some feelings. And this is a shift, right? Because this is a new identity. This is a new identity in who you are and what the representation looks like. So how do you get past some of that, right? Because I do think that's going to be something that people are going to have questions about.
Well, I've stepped out of that role at that point as sheriff. I am no longer the sheriff. I am now the county executive. And I don't represent law enforcement anymore. Certainly I have experiences in law enforcement, but I don't represent them. I no longer can arrest anyone. I don't have arrest powers anymore. I'm not carrying a gun. I'm here as the county exec. I'm here to listen to what your problems are. And if they are with law enforcement, I'm no longer that. I certainly have a great deal of respect for our law enforcement around here, and I think one of the huge detriments of being in a law enforcement career is that you pay for the sins of what a bad cop did in California or Texas or wherever, when in fact we've never had that happen here. And it's one of, and maybe the only profession that you truly pay for the sins of others, and like publicly and by the press and et cetera. So, but I'm no longer that. I am now the county executive. I am here to not only utilize the resources that we have to help address issues and to build economic growth and to make us a better county and to improve our quality of life. I'm here as the county executive to do that, not as the sheriff.
What's one of the things that really excites you about the opportunity, something you're looking forward to? Or what's a department that you're like excited to get ready to work with?
Well, I think, human services touches so many people that they do a great job. I know the director very well, the deputy director, people that work in that environment I have personal relationships with. But I think I'm most excited to look at the programming that they provide, assess it, and fix it. I do think that we will be able to make some very sweeping changes quickly to improve that programming, because I'm looking at it from a different perspective. I'm not looking at it from a perspective that it's been looked at for the last 50 years. Looking at it with fresh eyes, because I don't know all of the programs, but I do know what a successful program should be, and that's what I'm looking most forward to.
Okay. So, when I bumped into you and I threw this idea of you coming on the Kosh, right, and you were sharing with me about an individual that you had a conversation with and they questioned, well, you've been in public service for a really long time. Why? Right? Why continue, or why not let the next individual, new blood, whatever, however you want to phrase it, right? So I'm going to ask that question now on behalf of that individual. Why?
Well, it's not for the money.
Bruh.
Stop. Government never is.
It's not for the retirement. I would give 4 years of my life for an additional $64 a month. It is because of the things that I stated earlier. Right now, the open, transparent, responsive government doesn't exist to the level that I think it should, to the level of the expectation of people in our community, and I will change that. If I still have the desire to continue to serve our community, and I still have the skills to do that. That's what's driving me.
So, open forum. You have an opportunity here to talk to some of these voters. What do you want to say to them? No, you have no boundaries here, because I'm not phrasing anything. There's no question. What do you want to say?
Well, I again, when I talked about covering up the names and looking at the qualifications, and not just the qualifications, but what's been accomplished. What have the individuals that are running in this race accomplished? And, I have 14 years as sheriff running a large department. I have dealt with life and death decisions. I have dealt with more long-term decisions where we develop 3 courses of action, look at probable outcomes. We look at the pros and cons of everything, and we make a decision based on a lot of facts and a lot of research. And then I've also, like I said before, made decisions like that. It has to be made now, and it's made, and it's based on that vast experience that I have both at the sheriff's office and in the military. So, my qualifications, I have a bachelor's degree from UW-Oshkosh. I have a master's certificate from the University of Virginia. I'm a graduate of the FBI National Academy, of the Sergeant's Major Academy, of the Sheriff's National Academy. I've had a lot of training, and I know that some of that deals with the military, but all of it deals with leadership. I know how to lead people. I know how to motivate them. I know that if we can show the people that are working success, it drives them, and they are excited to get to work. It isn't about money. It isn't about benefit. It's about making a difference, and we're going to do that. We're going to make that difference. And when you look at the other 2 individuals, one has 0 experience in county government, a fair amount in state legislature, some I believe working for a congressman, and then one that, again, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think there was some change needed. So I asked the voters to educate themselves, listen to what the issues that exist currently, and who the best person would be for that job. Because this is an interview. I know that it comes down to popular vote, but I hope people get educated before they make that vote.
Not bad, John.
Thank you.
All right. Before we wrap up your topic of the week, I want to give you one last opportunity. Is there any last things you'd like to say to the Kosh listeners before we start wrapping up this episode?
I have been blessed. I have been very fortunate in my life to serve Winnebago County and serve the citizens of the country, and have been successful only because of the people that I worked with. It's not individual success. It is about working as a team, and not just saying, hey, team. It's about truly working as a team and having a vision and seeing that vision through. And I will do that as county executive. I will have more than just a go team mantra. There will be results in that team. And we're going to change the culture of not in a more successful and the continued success, and giving people that are working for Winnebago County a reason to come to work and a reason to be excited about the changes that they're making in the community.
Thank you. All right, it's time for us to start wrapping up this episode. Aptly Engaged listeners, you already know. I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for giving us your minds and ears. Thank you for caring about another amazing neighbor, another person, helping to make our entire community better. Truly, in this case, somebody who's out there helping to make us safe, helping to change the dynamics of things in the region. So there's great appreciation there. You already know we are trying to become the #1 podcast in all of Wisconsin, but I can't do it without your assistance. So what do I need you to do? Let us know how we can get better. Reach out to us. Also, if you'd like to be a guest, let us know. If you'd like to recommend a guest, let us know. And you can reach out to us at askthekosh@gmail.com. Once again, that is askthekosh@gmail.com. You can also, if you'd like to leave a voicemail with well wishes, shout outs, a story, God knows I love a good story, you can reach us at 920-385-5073. All right. Also, you know, we think we have something pretty amazing here with the Kosh, sharing about our the people that live in our region, our neighbors, getting to know them better, ripping down silos. And in this case, sometimes getting to know who our candidates are, who's going to be our representatives in our local government or have the possibility to be the representatives. So I think the more eyes and ears that get to learn about this amazing podcast, the more informed our community is, the stronger our community is. So please take a moment, go ahead, leave us a review. If you see the opportunity to rate us, give us those 5 stars, and also take the time to subscribe, because I promise you, we always have interesting guests here at the Kosh. Okay, now that means it's shout out time. So John, who you got shout outs for?
I got a shout out to my wife, Sandy, who has been dealing with, a career that has been very challenging. 2 careers that have been very challenging, my military career as well as my sheriff's career, and now supporting me through this race for county exec. And my shout out is to her.
Okay. You get more than one if you want more than one.
The great staff that I have at the sheriff's office, they are amazing. They make me look good, and I appreciate what they do every day.
All right. Fair enough. My shout outs, I want to send a shout out to Marcus Monroe. Bro, that was great. It was nice to sit at the cozy with you. Send a shout out to Jax Anderson. Jax, thank you as always for listening to me, being great guidance. To my man, my brother, Chris Tarman, bro, tacos soon. All right. To my man, Greg Wright. Greg Wright is an individual who's working on placemaking and community vibrancy here in Oshkosh, which makes me send a shout out to Amy Albright. Amy, thank you for considering me. And last, never least, big shout out to my wife for letting us continue to make this podcast in the house. Thank you, baby. And I love you. Okay. John, we got one more thing of business, and then we wrap up the episode. And that is this. You got 3 choices. Choice 1, or option A. Let's go with A. Option A. Please share some parting words of wisdom with the Kosh listeners. Option B. Tell us, what would yourself today tell your 13-year-old self? And option C. It's really not good multiple choice if I don't give you an all of the above. So you can do both. All right, John, what are we doing?
Some of the best advice I got in my life is very short, but it was from a military leader who said, be where you're supposed to be, do what you're supposed to do, and life will be simple. The other one, with my 13-year-old self, take school seriously, because the decisions you make today as a 13-year-old will impact you for the rest of your life.
Facts. Okay. John, what'd you think?
Awesome job. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for coming on the Kosh.